Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. I walked into the house, the familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee and the faint sound of laughter greeting me. It was unusual for me to be home so early. A last-minute change in my schedule had freed up my afternoon. As I stepped into the living room, the sunlight streaming through the windows painted everything in a warm glow, contrasting sharply with the cold pit forming in my stomach. Curiosity led me down the hallway toward our bedroom, where the muffled sounds of conversation and laughter floated out like an unwelcome breeze. I paused at the door, my heart pounding. Claire, my wife, should have been home alone, preparing for our daughter Mia's return from school. Instead, the atmosphere was charged, electric with an intimacy I hadn't anticipated. Peering through the crack in the door, I felt my world tilt sideways. Claire was sprawled across our bed, her laughter mingling with the deeper timbre of a man's voice, Mark, her boss. I squinted, searching for clarity in the surreal scene. He hovered over her, a smirk plastered across his face, as if they were sharing a private joke that only they understood. I felt my blood run cold as the pieces fell into place. They were too close, too comfortable. My mind raced with disbelief and anger, an internal storm brewing within me. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was betraying me in our sanctuary. I instinctively reached for my phone, capturing the moment that felt like the end of everything I had held dear. Before I could process my emotions, I pushed the door open, adrenaline propelling me forward. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice low and furious. Claire's laughter died in her throat. She turned, her eyes wide with shock, while Mark jumped back, scrambling to compose himself. "Jason. I didn't expect you home so soon," Claire exclaimed, a forced smile spreading across her face, but it only deepened the rage bubbling inside me. "You didn't expect me home early, or you didn't expect me to catch you in bed with your boss." I shot back, pointing my phone at them, recording the betrayal unfolding before me. Mark stood, his bravado faltering. "This isn't what it looks like," he stammered, trying to regain his composure. "Really? Because it looks exactly like you two are having an affair in my house." I felt a surge of anger and charged at him. Before I knew it, we were locked in a brutal fight, each blow a manifestation of my heartbreak and fury. "Stop. Jason, please," Claire cried, her voice rising in panic. "This is insane," but the world around me had narrowed to just Mark and me. I shoved him backward, my fists flying in a flurry of rage. I felt my knuckles connect with his jaw, the satisfying thud echoing in the air. "Get out of my life," I yelled, as I landed another punch. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" Mark retaliated, swinging his arm in an attempt to push me away, but I was relentless, fueled by betrayal. I caught him off guard, tackling him to the floor. The sound of our bodies crashing against the carpet felt like a thunderclap. Finally, we separated, both panting heavily, the room filled with the tension of our confrontation. Claire stood there, helpless, tears streaming down her cheeks. "This isn't helping," she shouted, desperation clawing at her voice. "You're making this worse." I turned to her, my voice shaking with emotion. "Worse? You're the one who brought him into our home, Claire. You have no idea how much I trusted you." Mark rubbed his jaw, standing up slowly, his eyes darting between us. "Maybe we should talk about this." "Talk? There's nothing left to discuss." I cut him off, my anger boiling over. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what's mine? You don't get to play the victim in this." With a glance back at Claire, I felt the weight of betrayal settle in my chest like a stone. "Get out," I said, my voice steadier now, laced with sorrow. "I need you to leave." I can't look at you right now." Her pleas fell on deaf ears as she grabbed a small bag, her hands trembling as she packed a few belongings. "Jason, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I love you, love." I scoffed, bitterness dripping from my words. You have a funny way of showing it. As Claire walked out the door, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. How could she do this? How could she betray our vows so easily? I vowed in that moment to protect our daughter at all costs, to shield her from this chaos, and to ensure she never felt the sting of betrayal like I did. The laughter that once filled our home now felt like a distant memory, swallowed by the silence of my broken heart. The door slammed behind Claire, echoing through the empty house like the final note of a haunting melody. I sat on the couch, feeling the remnants of the chaotic confrontation wash over me. The laughter that had once filled our home now felt like a ghost, taunting me from the shadows of my memory. I buried my face in my hands, battling the whirlwind of emotions threatening to drown me, betrayal, anger, and a deep, gnawing sadness. Mia would be home from school soon, and the thought of how to explain this mess to our daughter twisted my stomach into knots. How could I shield her from the fallout of this betrayal? I stood up abruptly, pacing the living room like a caged animal. Every creak of the floorboard seemed to amplify the weight of my thoughts. The sound of Mia's laughter echoed down the hallway, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. I paused, closing my eyes for a moment, willing myself to put on a brave face. I couldn't let her see how broken I was. I had to be strong for her. "Dad!" Mia called out, her voice bright and innocent. "I'm home." I plastered on a smile, forcing it to reach my eyes as I stepped into the entryway. Mia ran into my arms, her small frame feeling like a lifeline. "Hey, sweetie. How was school?" "Great. We learned about dinosaurs today," she chirped, her enthusiasm lighting up the dim atmosphere. "That sounds awesome," I replied, ruffling her hair. For a moment, I let myself forget the turmoil swirling around me, focusing solely on my daughter's radiant smile. But as she pulled away, I noticed the remnants of her joy fading slightly. "Where's Mom?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. My heart sank. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. She's going to be away for a little while. But I'm here, and I'll take care of you." "Is she coming back?" Mia's voice was small, the innocence in her eyes piercing through me. I knelt down to her level, forcing a calm tone. "Yes, honey, but right now, let's focus on you. Want to play a game?" Her face brightened again, but it was laced with an underlying worry that I couldn't shake. As we sat on the floor, playing with her toys, the reality of Claire's absence loomed heavily over me. I felt like a puppet, going through the motions while my heart shattered piece by piece. Later that night, after Mia was tucked into bed, I sank onto the couch, exhaustion washing over me. The house was eerily quiet, the silence amplifying my thoughts. I picked up my phone, staring at the video I had recorded earlier, still raw with anger. I replayed it, every second a stark reminder of the betrayal. Mark's smug expression infuriated me further, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just personal, it was a violation of everything I held sacred. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, a message from my friend Dave. "Dave, hey man, just checking in. How are you holding up?" I stared at the screen, the weight of my emotions crashing over me again. I typed back slowly. "Me, not great. Claire, she cheated on me. Caught her with her boss." The response came almost instantly. "Dave, I'm so sorry, man. Do you want to talk?" "Me, I don't know. I'm still processing everything." I felt a surge of anger as I typed my next message. "Me, I just can't believe she would do this. We had a life together. A daughter. How could she be so selfish?" "Dave, people can be incredibly selfish. You deserve better. Focus on Mia right now. She needs you." His words resonated with me, grounding me amid the chaos. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, resolving to put Mia first. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Mia's laughter echoing through the house. She was sitting at the breakfast table, devouring her cereal like it was a prize. I couldn't help but smile as I joined her. "Good morning, sweetheart. Ready for another day of dinosaurs?" I asked, trying to keep the atmosphere light. "Yeah. Can we go to the museum this weekend?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I hesitated for a moment, the reminder of Claire's absence weighing on my heart. But I wanted to make this work, to create a stable environment for Mia. "Absolutely. Let's make it a fun weekend, just you and me." As I watched her beam with happiness, I felt a surge of determination. No matter what happened with Claire, I would always protect Mia. The day unfolded like a blur of mundane tasks, work, cleaning, and taking care of Mia, but each moment was punctuated by the heaviness of Claire's betrayal. I spent the afternoon researching divorce proceedings, trying to understand the legal steps I needed to take. The idea of losing half my life, my family, was terrifying. Later that evening, as I prepared dinner, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Dave standing there, concern etched on his face. "Thought I'd check on you in person," he said, stepping inside. "Thanks, man. Just trying to keep it together," I replied, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Want some dinner?" "Sure," he said, following me into the kitchen. "But first, we need to talk about Claire and that scumbag." I paused, stirring the pasta. "I don't even know where to begin." "Start with how you're feeling," he suggested, leaning against the counter. "You have every right to be angry." "I just feel betrayed," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "We built a life together, and she threw it away for him." "What kind of person does that?" "Someone who's incredibly selfish and reckless," Dave replied, crossing his arms. "You have to think about your future now, Jason. This isn't just about her anymore. You have Mia to protect." "I know," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "I just can't wrap my head around it. I never thought Claire would be capable of something like this." "People can surprise you in the worst ways," Dave said, his tone serious. "But you're stronger than you think. Focus on what you need to do next. You can't let them win." His words echoed in my mind as we sat down to dinner, but I felt a flicker of hope amidst the despair. With Dave's support, I knew I could navigate this mess. I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for Mia. She deserved a father who would fight for her, no matter the cost. The days turned into weeks, and the initial shock of Claire's betrayal slowly morphed into a simmering determination. I spent every spare moment gathering my thoughts and planning my next steps. The emotional turmoil weighed heavily on me, but I knew I needed to focus on the truth behind Claire's actions. Something wasn't right, and I was resolved to uncover it. One evening, after putting Mia to bed, I settled into my home office, surrounded by piles of paperwork and legal documents related to the divorce. I opened my laptop and started researching Claire's company, hoping to find something that would explain her drastic change in behavior. As I delved deeper into their recent projects, one name kept appearing: Mark. I leaned back in my chair, the pieces of a troubling puzzle beginning to fall into place. Claire's work had recently taken a controversial turn, involving dangerous products that were hidden from consumers. It was almost too much to fathom. I needed to get more information, and fast. The next day, I met with Dave at our favorite coffee shop, the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee doing little to ease the heaviness in my chest. "Have you found anything?" Dave asked, stirring his drink absent-mindedly. "I think Claire's involved in something shady at work," I replied, keeping my voice low. "There's this new product they're pushing, and it sounds dangerous. I'm worried it could be linked to her affair with Mark." "Dangerous how?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Consumer safety issues. They're marketing it without proper testing. I have to find a way to get proof." I glanced around the cafe, ensuring no one was listening. If I can tie this back to her, it could not only destroy her reputation but also expose Mark. Dave nodded thoughtfully. "You need to be careful. If Claire is as deeply involved as you suspect, she might not go down without a fight." "Trust me, I'm not planning on confronting her just yet," I said, my resolve hardening. But I need to act quickly. This could affect a lot of people. After a tense few days, I decided to reach out to a former colleague of Claire's, Jenna, who had left the company a few months prior under mysterious circumstances. If anyone knew the dirt behind the scenes, it was her. I sent her a message, hoping she would agree to meet. "Jenna, I really appreciate you meeting me on such short notice," I said as we settled into a quiet corner of the bar. Her eyes flickered with surprise and concern. "Of course, Jason. I heard about everything that happened with Claire." "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice sympathetic. "Thanks. I need to know more about what's going on at the company." "I suspect Claire might be involved in something unethical," I confessed, keeping my voice steady. Jenna sighed, glancing around the bar before leaning in closer. "You're not wrong. There are things happening that the public doesn't know about, new products that aren't safe and management covering it up." I leaned forward, my heart racing. "What do you know?" "There's a project they're working on that's been pushed through without proper testing," she said quietly. "I saw some emails before I left that hinted at major safety violations. It's all tied to Mark. He's ambitious, and he'll do anything to get ahead. Can you get me those emails?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "I can try, but I'll need to be careful." "If Claire finds out," Jenna trailed off, a hint of fear in her eyes. "I understand. I don't want to put you in danger. Just do what you can." After we finished talking, I left the bar feeling both hopeful and uneasy. I had a lead, but I needed more evidence to expose Claire and Mark. Over the next few days, I maintained contact with Jenna, and she promised to keep me informed about anything she could uncover. That weekend, I decided to dig deeper into Claire's work. I spent hours on the company's website, combing through press releases and product announcements. Then I noticed a project presentation slated for the following week. A part of me knew that attending could be risky, but I had to know what was being said about the products. I decided to sneak in. On the day of the presentation, I donned a business casual outfit, hoping to blend in with the crowd. I arrived early, the sterile corporate environment making my stomach churn. I slipped into the back of the room, pretending to be another interested employee. As the presentation began, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Mark took the stage, his confidence radiating as he began discussing the new product. My heart raced as he spoke, outlining the features and benefits while skirting around the safety issues. I felt a knot tightening in my gut. "And we're confident that our rigorous testing protocols have ensured a safe product for consumers," he said, his tone persuasive. I couldn't sit back and let him lie like that. I raised my hand, surprising everyone in the room. "Excuse me, Mark. Can you clarify what rigorous testing means? Has the product been independently verified for safety?" The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Mark's eyes flashed with irritation. "That's a great question, but I assure you, all our protocols adhere to industry standards. But are you willing to disclose the results of those tests?" "Consumers have a right to know," I pressed, feeling a surge of defiance. "Who are you?" he snapped, glaring at me. "I'm just someone who cares about consumer safety," I replied, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. "Security!" Mark shouted, and I felt a surge of adrenaline as two men approached me. Before they could reach me, I slipped out of the room, my heart racing. I had sparked a reaction, and I wasn't about to let that go. As I exited the building, I felt a mix of triumph and dread. I had to gather more evidence and confront Claire about what I had learned. There was no turning back now. I was committed to unraveling the truth and exposing the web of deceit that had ensnared our lives. Later that night, I stood in the living room, replaying the day's events in my mind. I needed to confront Claire, to hold her accountable for her actions. But I also knew that doing so would change everything, and I had to prepare myself for the fallout. As I dialed her number, I felt the weight of our past pressing down on me. "Claire," I said when she answered, my voice steady. "We need to talk." The days following my confrontation at Claire's workplace were a blur of heightened tension and sleepless nights. I was consumed with the need for justice, not just for myself, but for anyone who might be affected by the unethical practices she had become entangled in. I was determined to make her face the consequences of her choices. I spent the next week meticulously compiling the evidence I'd gathered. Each email Jenna had sent me painted a clearer picture of the corporate cover-up, showing not only Claire's involvement but also the negligence of Mark and other executives. The more I learned, the more resolute I became. I was ready to take action. On a particularly rainy afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me, going through the emails one more time. Mia was at her friend's house, which gave me a rare moment of solitude. As I read through the emails, my phone buzzed. It was Jenna. "I've got something you need to see. Can we meet?" I felt a surge of adrenaline. Absolutely. How about the same cafe? A half hour later, I arrived at the cafe, my heart racing with anticipation. Jenna was already seated, a look of determination on her face as I approached. "Jason," she said, her voice low. "I managed to get a copy of the product testing results. They're not good." I leaned in, my pulse quickening. "What did you find?" She slid a folder across the table, her eyes darting around as if she feared being overheard. "The results show that the product failed multiple safety tests. They altered the findings before submission to hide the truth. If this gets out, it could lead to serious repercussions for everyone involved." My stomach churned at the implications. "We have to go to the authorities," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Jenna nodded. "But we have to be smart about it. If Claire finds out, she'll do everything in her power to protect herself." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision. I can't let this go on. I have to protect my daughter and anyone else who might be at risk. After a few more minutes of discussion, we devised a plan. Jenna would help me gather more evidence while I prepared to file a report with the Consumer Safety Board. I left the cafe feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about standing up for what was right. A few days later, I finally found the courage to confront Claire. I called her to meet me at a local park, a neutral space where we could talk without distractions. The sun was setting as I waited, casting a golden hue over the trees. When Claire arrived, she looked weary, the weight of her choices evident in the dark circles under her eyes. "Jason, what's this about?" she asked, her voice laced with anxiety. "Claire, we need to talk about your job," I said, keeping my tone steady. "And what I found out." She looked defensive, crossing her arms. "What do you mean?" "I thought we agreed to keep things civil for Mia's sake." "Civil? You call having an affair with your boss civil?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "But that's not all. I know about the products you're working on. I know they're unsafe." Her expression shifted from defensive to shocked. "What are you talking about?" Jenna gave me the testing results. "You're involved in a corporate cover-up that endangers people's lives." I took a step closer, my voice steady. "Do you understand what you've done?" Claire hesitated, her face paling. "I didn't know. I thought the testing was valid. I never would have signed off if I had known." "Are you serious?" I felt a rush of anger. "You didn't question anything. You didn't care about the potential consequences." "I was trying to keep my job." "You have no idea what it's like to be in that environment," she shot back, her voice rising. "I thought I was helping." "Helping?" I echoed incredulously. "By risking people's lives for a paycheck? How could you?" Just then, I noticed Mia running toward us, her little face beaming with joy. "Daddy! Look what I found," she shouted, holding up a colorful rock. Claire's demeanor instantly shifted as she crouched down to embrace our daughter. "Hey, sweetie. That's beautiful," she exclaimed, her voice softening. Mia turned to me, oblivious to the tension. "Daddy, can we go get ice cream now?" "Not right now, honey. I need to talk to Mom for a minute," I said, my heart aching. As Claire and I exchanged a fraught glance, I realized the gravity of what lay ahead. This confrontation was only the beginning. The following week, I filed the report with the Consumer Safety Board, feeling both terrified and empowered. I had gone from being the betrayed husband to someone seeking justice, and the thought fueled me. Jenna had agreed to be my witness and provided additional documentation to support my claims. The day of the hearing arrived, and my stomach churned with anxiety. I walked into the conference room, where a panel of officials awaited me, Jenna by my side. After presenting our evidence, I stood firm as the officials examined the documents. Mr. Daniels, one of the panel members said, looking up from the paperwork. You're alleging serious misconduct against this company and its employees. Can you elaborate on the implications of these products? I took a deep breath, steadying my resolve. These products have the potential to harm consumers due to lack of proper safety testing. If they're allowed to continue on the market, people could get seriously injured, or worse. The panel members exchanged glances, and I could see the gravity of the situation setting in. After a tense deliberation, they announced their decision to investigate further, which I took as a small victory. When I returned home that evening, I felt a mix of relief and anticipation. I knew Claire would be furious when she found out about the report. As I walked through the door, I saw her pacing the living room, her eyes blazing. You did what? She yelled, her voice trembling with rage. You had no right to go behind my back. I had every right, I countered, standing my ground. You put lives at risk, Claire. This isn't just about us anymore. Do you really think this will help Mia? You're only hurting her. Claire screamed, her hands clenched into fists. Mia deserves to know that her mother is not involved in something dangerous. This is about her future, I replied, my heart racing. The tension between us reached a boiling point, but then I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. I didn't know what I was getting into, she said, her voice breaking. I never wanted any of this. Then it's time to face the consequences, I said firmly. You need to take responsibility for your actions. As the confrontation continued, I felt the cracks in our relationship deepening, but I also felt a sense of closure. I was no longer the passive husband who had been wronged. I was taking charge of my life, fighting for what was right. In the following weeks, as the investigation progressed, I began to see glimmers of hope. I received messages from former employees who supported my claims and wanted to testify against Claire and Mark. I was determined to bring the truth to light and protect my daughter from the fallout of her mother's choices. One evening, as I tucked Mia into bed, she looked up at me, her big brown eyes filled with trust. Daddy, are we going to be okay? She asked, her voice soft and innocent. I brushed a strand of hair from her face and smiled. We're going to be just fine, sweetheart. I promise. I'm fighting for us, and I'll always protect you. As I closed the door and walked down the hallway, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was committed to seeking justice, not just for myself but for anyone who had been hurt by Claire's actions. This journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I would rebuild my life, protect my daughter, and find redemption in the process.